Welcome to Do You Ever Wonder? The show that brings you answers to many of the questions that you may have, but with no one to ask. Do You Ever Wonder is hosted by Mike Haltman, CEO of Hallmark Abstract Service, who, like you, has always been deeply curious about a wide variety of topics. Each week, Mike will be speaking with guests who are leaders in their field and who have inspirational stories to tell. So now, sit back and enjoy the show.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Do You Ever Wonder? And as you could tell from the beginning of that intro that played a little bit of the outro, as someone who handles all of the bells and controls myself, sometimes things can go a little bit wrong, but that's okay because we're live, we just roll with the punches and we take it from there. So today we have a guest, and I was talking to, I had a few meetings this morning, and I was talking to all of them about the topic that our guest is going to cover. Our guest is Cleon Cox, and he is known as the networking whisperer. And we all know horse whisperers, we all know a lot of different whisperers, but I think for those people watching this at this time in the economy, at this time in all the things that we're dealing with, I think the networking whisperer is probably one of the most important we could potentially have on here. So, Cleon Cox, welcome. Cleon is a motivational speaker. I think you have a specialty in unemployment and getting people back into the workforce. And he also is the author of the 50 Most Asked Questions of the Newly Unemployed. So, welcome, Cleon.
Thank you very much, Michael. It's great to be here. It's nice to see you and talk with you.
Terrific. So, like I said, we're in a funny point in time. We're in a what they call, well, what some people call a strong economy, what some people call not necessarily the greatest economy. I think the economy offers many challenges. My main business is the title insurance business, which is in the real estate sector, which is certainly not in the strongest shape that it's ever been in. And, one of the keys, and I was speaking to a couple of people today, and just about how important networking is. That, I think for some people or a lot of people, it's a lost art. And it's so critically important to growing and maintaining and growing our businesses. So, it's a pleasure to have you here to talk about it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, I'm the president of a BNI group. You familiar with BNI?
Very much. I facilitate a similar type. It's a different name, but it's out here in Oregon.
Okay. Well, what I always tell my group at the beginning of every meeting, because we do a lot on Zoom. We used to be in person in Manhattan. Now we do maybe every 1 out of 5 meetings we do in person. And I always say that networking is a contact sport, that, you know, Zoom is great. At the beginning of Zoom, the BNI Corporation got us online very quick. It was efficient. It provided some continuum of networking, but it's certainly not the same as being in person.
I would agree, definitely.
Right. So I think, if you watch a BNI meeting on Zoom, people are not really paying attention to most of what's going on. And that's a problem. So you are an expert in every type of networking. What's your primary specialty in terms of when you counsel people, other than employment matters? What kind of networking do you counsel people on?
Well, I belong to numerous organizations, unfortunately. Keeps me very busy, which is good for me. I work with entrepreneurs. I've done that for 25 years by belonging to a group out here called the Oregon Entrepreneurs Network. I also I attend meetings with another group with the acronym of OBI, which is the Oregon Biosciences Incubator. It's an incubator for startups in the medical technical world. So I do that. And so I go to different types of meetings, but the big thing I'm always talking about is the value of going out and meeting other people. And the purpose is not because they're going to buy from you or you're going to whatever. It's to meet the people and get to know them a little bit. And then from there, it will begin to blossom. but it takes time. And I learned a lot of that by doing the support group, the job finder support group I did for 30 years. During the end of COVID, I decided to give it up. I said, you know, honey, I said, I'm 80 years old. I said, I love doing it, but now would be the opportune time to just not do it anymore because there's other groups around town. And so therefore that's what I did. But I continually to meet with people because they know me from 30 years. And so I meet with them one-on-one. Businesses, I meet with them anywhere I go. I'm just curious. What's your business model? How do you do that? Why do you do that, etc.? And then I connect people. And so the big part of networking for me is literally connecting different people. Yesterday, I met with a soon-to-be politician, or want. She doesn't want, she doesn't like politics, but it's finally come to her with our state of the economy and what's going on in our state. She says, I have to do something and I can't stand by. So somebody else recommended that I go and just visit with her and give her some tips because I also do Toastmasters for the last 29 years. And so they wanted me to just see if I could give her some tips to help her do a better job when she's talking, delivering, listening, etc. So I'm spread across the board. There's no one particular. It's not magic. The magic is you. A lot of people come to me wanting to know what is the pill, the magic pill. You see that in your BNI group. A new person comes in and they're going, oh, great, I need to start sales here. And this is a group and gosh, I could probably sell these people. And yet when they come to our group, same thing, it's a leads group. And once in a while they'll say, you know, I'm not getting any leads yet. I said, because you don't know anybody yet. You haven't reached out.
That's so one of the keys to BNI and really to any kind of networking where the rubber meets the road are the one-on-one meetings
That's
where
right.
you learn about what someone's business is, you learn about ways you may be able to help them in business. BNI, their tagline is givers gain, which as hokey as it sounds, I agree with 100%. You know what? We have to think of others, and in that way, others will think of us. But you also learn other aspects of their life. I am involved in I do the podcast. I'm the board chair of a combat veteran charity, and people may not know that. And when I meet them, perhaps they know someone who could help me in any one of those endeavors. And you never know who people know. And if someone is not specifically like my bread and butter are real estate attorneys, but that's not necessarily who I'm meeting. But if somebody knows real estate attorneys or somebody, I mean, like you said, it's all about being there. It's all about what do they say? I forget who said it, but 90% of life is showing up.
Well, that's true. I have to go with that too. I have a mantra that I coined years ago, but I didn't do it on purpose. It just hit me one day, and it was at the support group I was doing way back in the 90s. And I told people all the time, I said, anything I'm doing, I have to have fun, meet people, and learn something. Just those three pieces. And they would tell me this, oh, well, but that's great, but this isn't a fun thing. This is work. I've got to go out and find my next position. Where am I going to go? I says, well, I hear you, and you're right. You have to work at it. But I said, if you're not having fun, it's not going to bode well for you, possibly. You may find something. The question is will it last or do whatever you want? And so, but over the 30 years, having done it that long, and it was all free, it's just a voluntary thing. But I got to learn from people who came back and fed back to me. And they said, now I understand what you mean. I have to, because if I'm not enjoying it, as much as I can put on a smile, oh, yes, people see through it.
Well, that's I think one of the keys to building relationships and having people drawn to you is a word I think that's extremely important in the networking realm, and that's authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not authentic, if you're a phony, I mean, listen, we're all not on our game 100% of the time, but if you're not welcoming facially, if you're not welcoming physically, I'm not always a believer in nonverbal cues, but I think there's something to it. But I think you really do need to be authentic.
Well, it's very true. like I tell people, I says, talk with them, praise them for something. I don't know if you've ever done Toastmasters. Have you ever done Toastmasters?
Not.
Okay, so Toastmasters, it's 99 years old now, and next year, of course, we'll hit the century mark. But I got into it 29 years ago, and it was by accident that I got into it. I was aware of them, but I had taken speech in college, and my wife had suggested, she had gone to a meeting. She goes, well, you should go to that. You would like that. And I said, no, I know all about that. I'm okay. And what I was referring to and not knowing it was I had gotten over my fear of standing in front of a group. Well, today, 29 years later, people say, well, haven't you learned yet? I said, do actors and musicians and all, do they ever stop practicing and wanting to get better? I says, it's the same thing. But I've learned so much in Toastmasters. They go to the positive end. I'm a positive person. I want to bring it out positive. When somebody comes up with something that's not positive, I'm thinking like, well, how can we turn this? What's the benefit? What can we learn from this?
Right.
And it
Well,
really hit me when my mom passed away. And I said, okay, Mrs. Smarty Pants, how are you going to make this positive? Because I was kind of down, like all of a sudden it struck me, mom's gone. And at that point, I thought about it. And later on, what I did is I will work longer to learn and do better with my use of the English language, because mother was an English aficionado. And I would be talking to her, and she said, no, you can't say that, honey. And I was like, what can I say? And so I do that with grandkids, great grandkids, and once in a while, people that I'm talking with or mentoring.
that's adding great value. But I think something you said a couple of minutes ago rang particularly true, which is that we need to get out of our comfort zones. You
Yep.
know, networking, I think for many people, walking into a room where you don't know anybody, walking into a room where you don't know anybody, and it could be particularly a cliquey type of
Right.
organization, it creates a great deal of fear. You know, what is it? The one thing more than death that people are fearful of is public speaking, and breaking into a clique at a event where
Right.
you don't know anybody. It's fear producing. So, from your experience in networking, let's say I'm walking into a room. There's 50 people. There's a group of people who I want to say hello to. What's your advice to people in terms of breaking into a huddle of people who know each other, who are laughing together, but you want to get involved? What do you do?
Go in and listen. Use your ears. Listening, that's the biggest skill you'll actually learn in Toastmasters, how to listen better. So you just go there, you walk up and you don't jump into the pile, you kind of stand to the outsides. And I have found, doing this over many, many years now, sometimes it's a small clique and nobody acknowledges you. I presume they don't want to. And so I'll wait, I'll listen. What can I learn from what they're talking about? And then pretty soon it's just like, okay, let's just walk away and go to another group or find somebody else who's over there all by themselves, and
So,
encourage them to become involved.
so you will wait for that clique to acknowledge you, and if they don't, you will glean
Time
what
to
you
move
can.
on.
So you wouldn't, okay, so that's interesting because when I go up to a clique, I will tend to be a little more aggressive just in
Mm-hmm.
terms of saying, hey, I know I apologize for, butting in, but I just want to introduce myself.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It depends on how the person feels comfortable. Remember, my true personality and background is that I'm shy introvert. Now I've adopted out of it, but when it comes to something of that nature, I just at the time it's not fun for me to go there and see how can I address them, what can I tell them. I don't know them yet. I would like to get to know them, but right now they're all talking about something they did over the weekend or whatever, and I don't fit into that crowd.
Right.
And I've also watched somebody walk up, enter, such as you're talking about, and they come in heavy-handed,
And get
and
shot
then the
down.
crowd. What was that?
And they get shot down.
Oh, right. And then sometimes, and then they continue on. They don't take it. I'm like, okay. So I've allowed myself to say I'll walk away and go to another group. And
You know what?
sometimes I will wind back up. Somebody will say, "Oh, come here. Let me take you over here to meet this group, my friend Joe over here." And they will take me over then. And then they introduce you, and it works out fine. You get to know them.
See, that's interesting. I've been to events where I kind of know a few people, but I see people who
Mhm.
are obviously uncomfortable, obviously a little bit younger, and I will go over to them and I say, you know, you should be speaking to people and they're uncomfortable, and I will bring them in and I will
Right.
introduce myself because I really don't know anybody, but I will introduce them too. And then, you know, it's like magic. They become engaged.
That's right. And I've done and I've seen that and it's a good way to do it, I think. And it's a good way so that somebody can see that I don't know if the words charitable is good, but it is. You're bringing this person in. Here's this new person. At the OBI thing, as it turns out, the majority of the attendees are PhDs, and they're so far over my head, it's unbelievable.
And
They're in medical science.
not necessarily the most social of people.
Well, many of them are totally scared to death.
Right.
But somebody has told them you should probably go to that group. They're having open. They have a well, they call it. Well, it'll come to me later, but it's just a gathering, and they'll serve wine or soda, whatever you would like, water, and you get in there, mill around, begin to talk, and they talk about some stuff that's so far over my head medically and so on. Oh wow. And so then I'm interested. I want to know. So I says, can you narrow that down and give that to me in a nutshell? Because you have all these other, like the doctor, he's got all these long terms of what you've got. I'm like, what does it do, doc? What's it going to do to
Bring
me?
it to layman's terms.
Exactly. Bring it
But
down to my level if you can.
but at the same time, they are flattered that you are inquiring to something that they're an expert in, and that helps them open up as well.
Right.
No, it's you know what? Networking is not, to use your group, rocket science, but
That's right.
it is a matter of reaching some type of comfort zone.
Mhm.
And it's such I tell my kids, you know, my kids are all, you know, upper 20s, early 30s, and I've tried to teach them through the years the importance. You know, one of my middle daughter is an IT recruiter, and how important it is to get out there and network. My son, who's getting his PhD at Ohio State, knows very well the value of networking, and he has really adopted it. And I think a lot of the young don't necessarily quite get it.
A couple of years ago, I attended a meeting of product managers because I ran into the fellow who started in Portland. It's elsewhere too. They have them all over the country, I guess. And it's called Product PDX. And so I don't do that at all, but I'm always open to learn. And it's a networking. In other words, there's people there. And so I had gone to it and I learned a lot about product and product development, product management. It was very interesting. I learned some new terms, UX, et cetera, for the high tech world. And so I thought, well, that's good. And I was just having fun meeting. And I happened to sit down at lunchtime at a table where I had two young fellows sitting on either side of me. And I don't know for sure, they were definitely computer wizards, et cetera, and programmers or whatever. I don't know. And it was winter, it was March. So they had big, bulky coats on. They had great, big, heavy beards. And we were talking, and one of them said something. And I was talking to him. And then he looks at the other guy and he says, yeah, he says, I really don't like to talk to people. I'd rather text you. And I go like, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're there and they see that. That's what they see, and they can do it. We know that you can do it. But I reverted now to many times rather than text. If I've got more than like I'll meet you at this time or whatever, I just pick up the phone and call people, depending on what it is, because I want to hear your voice and I want to get it out. And my fingers are getting arthritic and so on. It's not always easy. So therefore, I just want to get with it. And the texting, if it's going to be long and drug out, I don't want to do that. So I want to talk to you on the phone or in person.
Well, getting down to like the basics, when you do walk into a room, What do you what value do you put on a strong handshake and eye contact?
Oh, eye contact is good, great. Handshakes, that's what I was taught as a young man. You were supposed to do that. Although I'm careful now because believe it or not, there's still the people who want to squeeze and the arthritis has hit me. So I just pay attention to the hand piece as they grip and so on. And if I feel that it's coming in, if the big guy has got a strong one, I will somehow slip my hand out just a little bit. Sometimes I take the hint,
Right.
but otherwise I believe in it. Yes.
Those are very important nonverbal cues.
Oh,
You have to convey, sometimes even if you're not feeling it, a certain level of confidence. People are drawn to people who are confident and not drawn to people who are seemingly not confident. Would you agree with that?
that's right. When you speak with the sound of confidence, we talk about that in the support group for people getting work. And there's several pieces. And I find that people that are out interviewing for work, and I like to call actually like opportunities is what I call them. You know, who's out there that will compensate you for what you have to offer. So don't go ask for jobs, look for opportunities. But when they get out there and I see them, I would see them over the years in the group sitting right there. And when it was their turn to just introduce themselves, and they're very smart, they have degrees, they have multiple degrees. 99% of the attendees were professional. 50% had more than one college degree. And yet they were stumbling along now. They've worked, they want to work, they're having a tough time. And as I listened to them, I thought, well, I can see I would never tell them this to their face at the time because especially in front of the group, because it would just hurt their feelings that
Right.
like, you're not strong enough. You've got to come out there. I can't hear this from you. But I always encourage them. I says, let your passion flow. When you get into it and they want to know what it is that you want to do or what have you done, let your passion describe it
Right.
because there's a sound of confidence in your voice when you do that. And that's what I mean, having interviewed potential employers, that's what I wanted to know.
Right. Well, so I mentioned BNI before, and one of the things that you do in BNI every meeting is to give a 45-second or a
Yep.
60-second pitch, a
Right.
commercial. What do you do? Who are your best clients? Who you are? And I've been in meeting, or I was in a group where there was a CPA who credited his ability or his learning process of those 60-second commercials with his ascension to partner at the firm because it taught him how to speak to people. It taught him how to speak in front of people, how to you want to project an air, like you said, of confidence, of not arrogance, but
Right.
of confidence, of, I know what I'm doing, and I'm confident in that fact. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't learn. And I think that texting and, the technology is great, but it's taken a big piece of learning the ways of the world out of kids, or not kids, but out of our young's hands.
Well, it's a tool in your toolbox. Your college degrees are tools in your toolbox. How can you apply them? How can you utilize them? In my life now, I've seen people who have degrees and they just have no common sense.
Oh yeah.
And I'm thinking like, wow, because I just thought, well, they have a degree, everything must just go hunky dory for them. And then I would realize, oh wow, he's got the degrees, but he doesn't know what to do with it or how to apply it. Or maybe he got the degree. What I've learned, because I also had a business to where we help high school students get into college and get as much free money as possible. And so what I learned out of that was how many people, as they're finishing up high school and they want to go to college, how they select the wrong school for the wrong reason. Then they get into the school, then they select the wrong major for the wrong reason. And then when they get out of college, they select the wrong job for the wrong reason. And then I smile with tongue in cheek. And then sometimes when they go off and connect with a significant other, they do that for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, which is, none of that is a formula for success.
No,
But
but they don't know that at the time. They're young, they're moving, and they're being compensated and so on.
you
And
know, it,
they're
it's
happy.
interesting. I got out of undergrad in 1980, And at the time, it was a recession. And
Yep.
what I thought of it, I never did it, but I thought of writing a book about everything they never taught you in college,
Right.
because they really don't teach you how to live a life in college, whether it's a work life, anything. Not that it's necessarily their responsibility, but I think some kind of a course in job search, or some kind of a course in networking 101, or whatever it is. I don't think kids coming out are well prepared. And
For
I
the
don't.
most part, no. In
Right.
my opinion, also.
Right.
I talk with the superintendent of schools in my local community here, which they change every so many years. But and I my suggestion to them now is this: is you need to help these students. You need to give them more financial literacy and nutrition. And I said, because what do we complain about? The kids are getting fat, they're getting diabetes much younger. So I said, somewhere we have the foods, we have all the ability, we have charts telling you everything. Not only that, you have this thing that will tell you anything you want to know about the food. But
Well,
they grab the simplest piece of food to eat, or what takes care of their appetite, or not their appetite, but their taste buds.
Well, not to change the subject of from networking, but I think
Mhm.
what you've just described is a lesson in parenting.
That's right. And then the other way parents learn that is by getting out and doing it. We all have networked in our life, but as we get older, sometimes it gets cut down for different reasons. But you network when you go to church, when you go to civic affairs, when you go to BNI, you network when you're downtown. It's all around you. And the best way is to have fun when you're doing it. Don't be going in there with a specific goal that I've got to get an interview, or I've got to sell this product. You want to go in and get to know the person a little bit.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because my next question was going to be, when you go to a networking event,
Mhm.
I'm in real estate, I'm going to a real estate event. Should I be intentional? Should I be doing my research on who I think is going to be there? Should I be intentionally going for the purpose of meeting XYZ? Or should I just be going and let the chips fall where they may?
From my perspective, and what I've learned is intentional, yes. What is intentional, and what is it going to develop? First off, the thing I find so many people don't realize, when you go to an event, and let's just say you go to this event and you got snookered, you didn't realize it was a group of all um, nurses, and they were having a gathering, and somehow you got invited and you went, and you're going like, oh my goodness, it's all nurses. What do they know? But people, what you don't realize is, first off, you don't know who their significant other is. You don't know who their neighbors are, their alum are, who their church friends are. And that's the big piece, because I see engineers come to my group. I see people who are specialists in this or that, and they want to go to where all the engineers are. I go, why do you want to go there? Well, because they understand what I understand. I says, yeah, but if they're there, there's a chance that they're going to be looking for work also, just like you. And why are they going to tell you? I said,
Well,
so there's nothing
right,
wrong going there, but be careful what you're looking for.
100% fact. And one of the first networking group I ever went to, and I'll never forget, and I always repeat it, is the woman running the group said, it's not the people sitting here that are important. It's the 200 people each one of those people knows.
There you
And
go.
that's, to your point, 100% right. So, what do you think? So, when I'm researching meetings to go to, group, networking events, you have this meetup thing now, you have events all over the place.
Right.
Would you recommend staying away from Zoom events and look for in-person events, particularly now post-COVID?
I would definitely put the majority of my time in person as opposed to on Zoom. Sometimes there's a group and you're not going to you won't be able to meet them in person, or you can always introduce it and you get an idea from them online. So you could do that. But a lot of people do it because it's simple, it's easy. And the common joke now is, you can go to this meeting, you don't have to wear your pants tonight.
Well, that's 100%. But I also think that sometimes people go to these Zoom meetings, as you said, I believe in the beginning of this discussion, and they check a box that they have networked.
Right.
And, it was to an extent, you could call it networking. It's the same thing with people who go to a BNI meeting and don't do the one-to-ones and don't, you have to, it's the extra work that really, that's where the rubber, to use the phrase again, where the rubber meets the road.
That's right.
And
You've got to get out, in my opinion, you've got to get out there. It works better. People have confirmed that back to me over the years. The other, when it comes to the employment world, the other major factor is that I tell people this, I said, for your information, before you move into whatever you're going to do next, you will have to make some changes. And they'll say, what are they? I says, they're different for everybody. So I said, it's voluminous, it's so big. But I said, you pay attention to other people to find out, because as experienced as you are, as smart as you are, as degreed as you might be, I said, you're going to get out there and they're going to want to know, what are you going to do for me? Why should we hire you?
right.
I mean, I try to encourage people, especially when they get a little bit older, why don't you think about your own business? To which they always have, well, I want security. And depending on the person and what I see in them, if I feel they're strong enough, I'll just say, so how's that working for you? And they're going like, well, not too well. I said, okay, do whatever you want. I'm just throwing that out for you,
Right.
because I said, it has value. Is it hard? Yeah, everything is hard though. It's what you put into it and what you took out of it. And if you're having fun doing it, then go for it. My big question today is if you, I see people all the time that are certainly younger than I am, and they'll say, yep, in 3 more years, I'm going to retire. And I says, good. And so there's a whole bunch of story behind this, and I'll say, well, that's good. And my next question is, so what are you going to do after that? And they're like, well, And I said, no, tell me, what are you going to do? And generally the wife and I, or whatever, we're going to travel all the time. I'm going to go fishing and play golf all the time. I'm going to play sports. I love the golf and so on. And then I say, and then what are you going to do after that? And they look at me with strange. And I said, what I know, because of people I've known from the blue collar work to the no collar work, I said, after a couple of years of doing that, usually you kind of get tired of it. And then I see them go back to work for less money.
Right. No, listen, there are no finite answers. There's no secret ingredient. We each have to make our own path, but certainly, to the point of getting out there and learning and meeting people and expanding your horizons and getting out of your comfort zone, all of those things are important, and it really behooves people to get off their butts, get out of their office, and start doing it. I'm somewhat of an introvert, as you are,
Mhm.
and you have to fight your demons. You have to do what it's going to take to get you to where it is that you're interested in going.
Very true. Very
Yeah.
true. It's kind of like I teach safe driving for AARP, and that's for the older people generally. And like I tell them, I'm not going to teach you how to drive. We're going to just refresh you.
Right.
And so as we do it, you can see them. And the one common phrase that will come up is that this is a full-time job, driving. But young kids think with all the automation that they've got, everything, they don't have to, everything, just turn the button and go and just drive. And it's so much bigger than that.
Oh yeah.
And they don't know it till they had a crash.
Well, I always tell my kids, it's not your driving I'm worried about.
That's right.
I mean, when you think about driving, not to digress again, but we are trusting our lives to a stranger on the other side of a double yellow line.
That's
And when
right.
you think about it, it's really, a lot of people don't trust anyone in any circumstance, and here we are trusting our lives to a stranger on the other side of a double yellow line. So it's interesting.
That's right. So it's a lot of work, and it takes you a lifetime to get good at it, and good to go with that. And the same thing happens in business and work. and that is people can build bad habits just as easy as they can build good habits.
Absolutely.
The game is to find out what they are and go forward with it. And so when people are out there in business, in Toastmasters, one day I was in Salt Lake City, and there was a featured speaker. He was doing a keynote speech. He was the 1994 world champion of public speaking in Toastmasters.
Wow.
The man was a veterinarian out of Idaho, and he was a great presenter. He had fantastic stories. They rolled together wonderfully. He was so motivational. Well, when I was in Salt Lake years later, and he was putting on this specific program, and it boiled down to, how do I revitalize my business? And he just made a matrix, a 4-box matrix, and he talked about how you start, and what you have is a lot of energy and a lot of unanswered questions, etc. And you begin to do your business, and you begin to grow it, and then you're really getting good. Now you're doing very well, you're prospering, and you begin to take it easy and lay back. And the next thing you know, the accountant's telling you, we're not making much money here anymore. And then you go like, oh my God. And that's when people collapse and so on. So he was working on it. And he said, what we have to do is we have to revitalize ourselves and get that energy back you had in square one, when you figured everything is going to work and nothing will shut me down. Now, granted, sometimes something shuts you down and you're stuck, and it's not going to work the way you're doing it. You have to change your business model.
Well, I think that's a great lesson, that we cannot stand on our laurels, that we have
That's right.
to pedal to the metal and keep on trucking.
That's
And
right.
hopefully from this discussion, people will get a few ideas of how it is that they need to approach business, networking is a personal thing too. And let me just say this, Cleon, you said you were 80. You don't look 80. So
Thank you.
you look terrific. And I thank you very much for coming on. And I'd love to have you on at some time in the future again.
Okay. And I appreciate your reaching out. It's great. And I enjoy this. It's really great. It's great to meet you and see you. On a sidebar, you can cut this out if you want. Have you ever done Lunch Club?
Lunch Club? No.
I haven't done it in a while, but I've made contacts all over the United States. I narrowed it down, just said, I just want to meet with people on the US. And I've met people from all over. It's very interesting, the people I've met.
You know what? I'll look it up.
Oh, yeah. Just lunchclub.com. And you sign up, put some information about you, and you can always change it. And then they'll work with you. And I'm not sure, I haven't been on it for a while, but I believe it's still free.
That's great. I will look it up when we're done. And in any event, I wish you a very Merry Christmas and a very happy, healthy, prosperous, and safe 2024 to you and your family.
Thank you, and a Merry Christmas to you.
All right. Thank you.
Welcome to Do You Ever Wonder? The show that brings you answers to many. Thank you for
Technical
listening to Do
difficulties
You
again,
Ever
Cleon.
Wonder?
That's
we
okay.
hope you enjoyed the show. Next week, we will have another terrific guest telling their story. And if there are any specific topics you'd like to hear more about, please don't hesitate to let us know. Our
You ever
curiosity
wonder? Okay.
knows no bounds. Please subscribe and like and share this episode on your social media. See you next week.
Thanks. See you later, Michael.
All right, Leon, take care.